Today we're talking about fear. And I'll say it again, I do think fear sometimes just gets a really bad rap because it's one of those emotions that we put into like a negative emotion bucket. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking about fear, the really important takeaways about it, and then what not to do and what to do, especially in the midst of a fearful situation as it relates to end of life, illness, things like that. Hi, my name is Abigail. I'm here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life. And in the meantime, also using death as a valuable tool that it is to bring the richness and meaning into our lives. Let's get started. So the reason I'm bringing this up is number one, I'm using it as a little bit of a distraction tool because I am acknowledging my fear right now, and I have a surgery I'm going to be going to in a number of hours. It's helpful right now to talk about it, acknowledge it, and also keep my mind busy doing some other things as I go through this situation. I kind of tell my little story more on TikTok, but it is a surgery and it could either be nothing or it could be really serious. The doctor kind of went both ways, and I'll find out more after this. I don't have a bad feeling about it, but that just could also be my body just trying to protect me. So let's talk about a little bit more about fear. Fear is a very normal, healthy emotion. And I'm not pretending here to be a specialist in, psychotherapeutic communication. I specialize in end-of-life care, particularly clinical aspects, quality care, regulation type stuff, but really also teaching everybody and all of us, how we can die better and also, use death as, a way to create meaning in our lives. So by having all these, conversations and education about it. So I'm not a licensed therapist, so please bear that in mind. But fear, particularly at end of life, is so normal, particularly with illness and, anything related to illness, serious illness, any of that. And people think that they have to kind of either like fix it a lot of times or that it's bad to fearful. And number one, especially if the situation if it's kind of congruent with the situation, it's very good. It's very healthy. If you weren't feeling fearful and you were your life was kind of dependent, especially the next year or so was dependent on one piece of information or how a certain procedure was going to go, it would be normal for you to feel nervous, to be fearful. That would be super, super normal. Some people have a little bit more acceptance than others, and maybe they can accept things a little bit more and kind of go with the flow. Sure. And for those people, good on them. I wish I could be that a little bit more. I'm a little more wound tight. You should have known me before. I was really wound pretty tight. But I'm a little less wound tight now. I had to be because of all my illness stuff. So knowing that fear is there is a functional purpose to it. It is there to try and protect you. And it's normal. A lot of times when we're feeling fear, we kind of naturally start to kind of catastrophize a situation in our head, and our mind starts to kind of create all these stories and think of all the what ifs and everything. And me being a nurse and knowing what I know and just how my brain likes to be sometimes very creative at the wrong times, really likes to just get kind of spooky creative and come up with all these worst case scenarios. That type of catastrophic thinking, you're not manifesting anything at all. If some people may think, if I'm thinking about it, I'm manifesting it. No, you are having a natural reaction to the situation. Your body is actually trying to prepare you for whatever is going to happen down the line, particularly like the worst case scenario. So this again is your nervous system talking to you, trying to work with you, doing its best to say, I got to protect you, because the whole the whole thing that the body tries to do is protect itself, procreate, and try to continue the species. That's, biologically and the biological level, that's what we're trying to do. And we're always trying to avoid actual or potential threats to our life. Right? We're always trying to avoid death. And this is so natural. So having these fears about death, having these fears about illness, because it could, lead us to death, is so normal, and it's part of our biology. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to try to fight it. Fighting it is not going to help your biology to just calm down. Now, I realize there are people out there who have just become very sophisticated with meditation, sophisticated with their psychosomatic type of work, and can cool themselves down and, again, get into a really good state, and good for them. But Many of us, particularly when we're in a situation where we particularly feel fearful, threatened about, our life, our illness, wellness, all that kind of stuff, it's okay. It's okay to feel like a nervous wreck, and feel like you don't have much control over what's going on in your head and in your body. Totally normal. So acknowledging your fear, number one, is really, really important, not pushing it down. Acknowledging it and allowing those feelings to kind of come up to the surface and just start to feel it. Now, there are certain other things you can do, but what I first want to say is the fear doesn't have to rule your day. It doesn't have to own your entire existence. In that, you can feel fear and you can still feel other types of emotions and you can still keep moving forward. So you can feel fear and you can still also feel a sense of hope and create hope around, something like reframing that we've talked about. You can feel fear and you can still feel happy and have a laugh at something that is kind of funny. And in fact, that does dissipate the pressure. We talk about having a sense of humor and do we need to take it all so seriously, right? You can still feel the fear. And I know there's that feel the fear and do it anyway. That's a little different, but that is totally really cool. And yeah, you can still feel the fear and do it anyway, but you can feel the fear and still feel other emotions that are maybe a little bit more pleasant to experience, okay? Connection with people, intimacy with people, especially during a situation like that. Feel comfort even while still feeling fear. Acknowledging it is number one. You've got to do that. What I want to be very clear about is when you're dealing with trauma, this is a very different thing other than trauma. I'm talking about end of life, illness. When you're talking about trauma, I'm very clearly saying I'm not an expert in that. You need to ensure that you are talking to and working with a qualified professional because trauma is a very complex issue and it needs to be dealt with appropriately. This is also not a time that you are going to try to process everything and try to process everything behind your fear and try to make sense of it all. In the midst of a situation where you're waiting for a result or you're, getting ready for surgery, whatever it is, and you're feeling fear, this is kind of what I'm talking about right now. So I'm talking about how you can kind of work with the fear and work through the situation. So that's what we're talking about. So feeling the fear is really important. And then we can do things like some physical things because it's so natural for us to get in our head and stay in our head and create this amazing world of disaster in our head. So good at that. So this is why it's good to either get kind of down more into your physical body or focus on extrinsic factors, things outside of you. So one way is that you can just kind of work with yourself in the situation, work with the fear and just kind of work with it, especially when it gets overwhelming, is to do certain grounding exercises. So something like pick 5 things that you see around you that are red and just start listing. Okay, I'm picking 5 things that look red. That car is red. That flower is red, and just do that. And you can do that over and over again a few times. The other thing I like to do is go through your 5 senses. So what do I see around me? What do I smell? What can I taste? What can I touch? And what can I hear? So just kind of taking a pause from that overwhelm and just trying to move through the situation, as easily as possible. The other thing that I tend to do, and what I did this morning, is I went for a walk and I walked maybe at a little bit of a faster pace because I'm feeling this nervous energy. The fear is kind of really palpable right now. And so it helped me to kind of walk. It helped me to, pump my blood and breathe a little bit. For me, breathing a little heavier and kind of breathing kind of like this, especially with walking, kind of helps me just kind of move it around a little bit because I need that. And then also this morning, I got up, I jumped on my trampoline and just kind of shook things out because I tend to get I get a shaky nervous, that's kind of me. So, when I'm really, really fearful, I can, even though I may not look like I'm shaking, I feel like I'm shaking. Totally normal. So you can try those different types of things, especially if you need to kind of get into your body. Getting into your body, if you can walk, great. And if you can't, do things with your body, squeeze, your hands and release them, squeeze other parts of your body and release them. Obviously do all this safely. The other thing last thing I'm going to talk about is doing a physiological sigh. And I know people are like, oh God, there's another person talking and telling me to do, take a deep breath. And yes, it is deepening your breath a little bit, but the one thing we need to really understand and really appreciate about breathing is that when you do it correctly, you change, or just breathing in general changes your chemistry. And when you do it in a certain way, you can really improve your chemistry in that you can get yourself from a very, in your sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, flee type of nervous system state, and bring it down into the more relaxed parasympathetic type of rest and digest nervous side of your nervous system, which is, obviously, a lot of us would like to be. This, sympathetic fight, flight, or flee, this serves a purpose, but we don't want to be in it all the time, right? But when we're fearful, it's natural for us to be there, but we can try to do some little exercises to get us into a calmer state. So I'm going to give you one breathing exercise and then give you a little tidbit on that if you want to keep it super simple. It's very simple. And it's the physiological side. Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about it quite a bit. And when you actually do it, it actually works. So it's basically at its core, it's 2 inhales followed by a long exhale. Now, the inhales, though, they look a little different. The first inhale is a long inhale, is a very deep, kind of very deep and very purposeful inhale, followed by another inhale to top it off and really make sure that you fully expand all those little pockets in your lungs. And then that's followed by a very long exhale. So it looks something like this. That's the 2 inhales, and then a long exhale. You try to do that as long as you can. I kind of cut it off, but you try to do that as long as you can. And doing several rounds of that. If you can just do 4, just do 4. If you can do a little bit longer, do a little bit longer. You will actually start to feel the difference. Now, if you feel like doing something super simple, you just want to say, just give me something like super simple with breath, then just focus on doing a longer exhale. So if you're just trying to deepen your breath a little bit, you kind of say maybe do a little bit of a deeper inhale and then just do a long exhale. Making your exhales longer than your inhales is going to help dip you into that more calming state. And again, so working with your breath, it can actually change the chemistry of your blood. If you change the chemistry of your blood, you change the chemistry of your whole body because blood goes everywhere, right? It goes everywhere. Let me know if this is helpful or not. Let me know if you want me to expand on anything else. But it's surely been a little helpful to me because it's getting my mind off a little bit and also acknowledging what I'm going through at the same time. So I appreciate it. But really my job here and what I want to do is make sure this is valuable to you because, sooner or later, at one time or another, we are dealing with fear, and it is normal. It's something that makes us all human. And, remember, we're so much more alike than we realize and we give credit for. So please take care. I'm Abigail. Let's continue to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life and continue to use death as the valuable tool that it is to create our meaning. And I'll see you soon.